Stop explaining yourself to people who are determined to disagree with you. In fact, when you're dealing with exceptionally toxic people or you're in a toxic environment, they will do everything in their power to gaslight you, invalidate you, and guilt trip you. And there are multiple reasons why it's so important that you do not engage when you realize you're dealing with someone establishing these types of communication patterns. So for one, they will do any and everything in their power to create some kind of conversation, some kind of confrontational conversation, to where you at some point slip up and trip up and you say something that can be misinterpreted, or you just step out of character altogether. And this is designed to make other people view you in a negative light. Page 68 of the book, the section titled The Confrontational Conversation Technique, it talks about this. And it says that this technique is used when an envious person aims to catch a target off guard, but confronting them with hostile conversation or arguments. The purpose is to make the target act irrationally, intimidate them, or vet for additional information. So other than reserving your energy when you realize someone who is determined to disagree with you, even when they do start a conversation with you, it's pointless for you to respond or explain yourself, because they have the same goal, and that's to disagree with you, to paint you out as if you're the bad person, or to essentially avoid accountability, avoid the accountability needed for them to acknowledge the fact that they played a part in whatever this rift in the relationship or the group, the environment is. But another reason why it's so important not to do this is for the reason that I just read. So you have to make sure that you preserve progress that you're making, or steps that you plan to take, some strides that you may be making in a particular area, because sometimes the sole purpose of starting arguments is to vet for information, to see what you have going on, see what you're building behind the scenes. And also, too, this is another thing. There are some people who are planted in your life for the sole purpose of getting information. It's almost like the flying monkeys in the narcissistic abuse cycle. Some people will go as far as sending out individuals, like, for example, say you provide services. Some people will go out of their way to plant people to purchase your service with the sole purpose of getting information and taking it back to whoever the perpetrator is. Or there are some people who are paid to disagree with you, paid to provoke you, who are paid critics, so to speak, because this perpetrator is orchestrating all of these attacks to knock you off of your game, especially if they see that you're making progress in a particular area. So sometimes engaging isn't just about making sure that you don't act out of character, but also you have to perceive the bigger picture at hand here. A lot of the time, people are provoking you because they see that you're on the brink of a breakthrough, or they see that you're already stepping into new territory and you're finding new success, or you're breaking barriers in certain areas. And what they want to do is distract you from that momentum and pull you back down to the level that they're on, or that they feel like you should be on with them. And this conversational dynamic is also referred to in certain spaces as reactive abuse, where the perpetrator will keep provoking the target until at some point they react, because we're human and sometimes we feel that dire need to defend ourselves just to alleviate a lot of that discomfort. And the moment that we attempt to defend ourselves, they use our attempt to defend as almost verification and an incentive to keep abusing us in the form of blame shifting. Little do you know, they were creating this conversation. They were creating this entire scenario, was orchestrated, and all that they were doing was waiting for the opportunity for it to unravel so they can continue to abuse you. Now, the reasons have been explained as to why it's so important not to engage when you realize someone is provoking a response out of you, or in particular a negative response or a negative reaction out of you. But it's important to know what to do next. And I want to read from the section in the book titled Pay Them Dust to explain a response that could be implemented when you're dealing with this dynamic. Pay them dust. Sometimes the only way one can battle their adversaries is to completely disengage. This is different from showing indifference, because indifference requires strategy. Every time the perpetrator makes an attempt to get a rise out of you, indifference would entail one reflecting on the purpose behind the attack and immediately counterbalance it. Disengagement, however, consists of complete withdrawal. Under particular circumstances, it may be in one's best interest to leave altogether, and that is not limited to the physical. And really, at the end of the day, it boils down to this. People could misinterpret what you mean, or they could completely understand what you mean in all honesty, but they can act as if they don't understand. They can act as if they misinterpreted what you said or say, I didn't know what your intentions were, etc. But people can't argue with fruit. At some point, you have to reserve your energy for the sake of this notion. Nobody can argue against fruit. So when you are producing fruit in a particular area, in spite of what these people are trying to say about you, in spite of the narrative that they are trying to carry on about you or convince other people about you, when people look at the strides that you're making in a particular area and they're looking at whatever the perpetrator has going on, that is the only explanation required.